Before I dig into this episode, I just wanted to address the fact that there was no episode last week, and that's because a little Christmas evil got into my computer and basically made the episode unreleasable. So, this is a more abridged version of last week's episode that will air this week. And then next week, I have something new. But let's get going. Hello, everybody, and welcome to What the Hell Should I Watch? I'm Steve Stebbing. This is the weekly rundown of what I'm watching, which may become what you're watching. And we come at you every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific on stevestebbing.ca. And this week, as you saw at the top of the episode, I had a little bit of a computer snafu. So we're redoing what's fresh for your eyeballs. And this is the big one, I think, to end 2024. This is a film that is part of a franchise, the third piece in a franchise that had no business being as good as it is. This is Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails reunite against a powerful new adversary, Shadow, a mysterious villain with powers unlike anything they have faced before. With their abilities outmatched, Team Sonic must seek out an unlikely alliance. Starring Jim Carrey, Ben Schwartz, Kristen Ritter, Natasha Rothwell, Shamar Moore, James Marsden, Tika Sumpter, Idris Elba, and Keanu Reeves. Directed by Jeff Fowler. So as I was saying, the Sonic movies, I think, are an anomaly because given what we've had for video game movies since the inception of video game movies, hasn't been a winning formula. But the first trailer they released for the first film had immediate backlash because Sonic looked really fugly. So they completely revamped the character and it works. And the first movie was great. The second movie was really solid. And this third movie, bringing another big character from the Sonic universe into it, Shadow, there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of super fans, just like my daughter, my youngest daughter, Hannah, is an absolute super fan and can talk this franchise backwards and forwards, especially when it comes to the extra scenes at the end of this film. There are two extra scenes, very fan lore heavy. But I think it's honestly is pulled off. The characters are where this film always exceeds expectation because Jim Carrey is having the time of his life as Robotnik. As far as the voice actors go, Ben Schwartz, Idris Elba as Knuckles, and Colleen O'Shaughnessy as Tails, who, as far as I know, always really been Tails, knocks it out of the park. And Keanu Reeves is great as Shadow. I'll get into that in a second. But I would also give besides Jim Carrey playing two roles, an actor that I didn't mention in the initial setup, Lee Majube, who is a local British Columbia actor, plays Agent Stone, the sidekick to Dr. Robotnik. He does a lot of emotional heavy lifting in the third film that I think he should be recognized more for. He almost steals the movie a lot in a lot of different ways, and I absolutely adore him as an actor and hope that this film gives him a big boost, which is in part from what I'm seeing thanks to Jim Carrey elevating his role in this franchise. But this movie, we have to hand the heart of this film to Jeff Fowler, the director, and Pat Casey and the other writers for making a cohesive story that doesn't feel like it's changing from in tone from film to film. There is like a lot more darkness and a lot more emotional manipulation to the third film, but I think that's really due to Shadow's character and the growth that Sonic needs to go through as a character. But Jeff Fowler is just knocking out of the park every time. I'm glad that he's just going to be helming all of them because there is a fourth one already greenlit. We won't see it until spring 2027 at the earliest, it seems. But Paramount seems to know what they have with Jeff Fowler, and it's all working. So the only issues I would bring up with this film is a moot point in the end because I just thought Keanu Reeves was slightly an odd choice to play Shadow. I felt like there were other fan mentions of different names bandied around, but when it landed on Keanu Reeves, I was like, okay, I love Keanu, so I'm obviously into seeing how it would work, and I was satisfied with the end product because there is a darkness to Shadow that Keanu brings. But as my daughter said going into it, it's John Wick with a Glock as a hedgehog. So that's what it seems like to the younger generation because they don't have as much as the history with Keanu as we do. But he pulled it off, and I'm excited to see what's to come in this franchise and the whole film as a whole. It's satisfying, it's entertaining, it plays really really great on the big screen, and if you haven't already gone to it yet, because by the point that this episode's out, it'll be out for a few weeks, I highly recommend it because it is a great theatrical experience, especially if you've already seen the first two in theaters. If you've already checked out of this series, continue checking out. It's not going to satisfy you in any way. All right, moving on. Let's get to one of the surely awards contenders in award season, especially when it comes to Academy Awards. I think this one will probably take a Best Actor nomination. This is the drama Sing Sing. Divine G, imprisoned at Sing Sing for a crime he didn't commit, finds purpose by acting in a theater group alongside other incarcerated men in this story of resilience, humanity, and the transformative power of art. Starring Coleman Domingo, Clarence Macklin, Sean San Jose, and Paul Rassi. Written and directed by Greg Quedar. So it seems that people finding catharsis through theater and stage and Shakespeare is a bit of a tone in 2024 because we got the film Ghostlight, a film that I absolutely loved and praised a few weeks ago and have been singing its praises ever since I saw it. But it's basically about finding catharsis through this art, and Sing Sing plays it to a big degree. Coleman Domingo is absolutely aiming for a Best Actor nomination, and a well deserved one because it's such a powerful performance as Divine G, and to follow this character and the rest of the cast basically on their shoulders just kind of through this these moments and these creative moments, I think is really really good. Clarence Macklin I think is also really really solid in this film, and which is interesting about Clarence Macklin, Sean San Jose, and a lot of the other cast members are they are actually a part of or were a part of this very real um, prison program allowing inmates to make their own play. So that I find really fascinating, and it all comes down to the writing and direction of Greg Quidar, who puts this film together. And there's so many beautifully shot sequences through a room that has so much sunshine and brightness on the outside that shines through into the work that these guys are doing. There's a lot of, I feel like a lot of playing with metaphors within how this film is executed that I really, really picked up on. And the film will get its full re-release coming in January here. because I don't believe enough eyes in the mainstream got it came to it in its limited release. But now, hopefully, with a little bit more oomph from A24 behind it, that this film will get more of a platform, because I think it deserves it. And I've said it before. I don't know if it was on this show. It might have been on After the Credits, but I think it would make a really great pairing with Ghostlight as a double feature. Bring your tissues, because it would definitely be warranted in that situation. I really didn't have any issues with this film. I really thought that from the cast and the cinematography and the direction point of view and the writing, that it was just operating on all cylinders. I think I even scored it a perfect score on Letterboxd, because it is that damn good. And I think it's a film that people should see, and one of those films that needs a megaphone to elevate it, like Ghostlight, like a few other ones. Like Enora's getting enough of a push that people will see it. There are some films that would have been mainstream before, no, would have been not mainstream, would have been way less than mainstream, and just kind of operated in the shadows in the fringe of indie film, that are getting more attention now. But I hope Sing Sing will be one of those ones to get that platform. Moving on to another film that I don't think has enough of a platform now, as because IFC Film in Canada doesn't really have a major push. This is Nickel Boys. Based on the Pulitzer Prize winning novel by Colson Whitehead, Nickel Boys chronicles the powerful friendship between two young African American men navigating the harrowing trials of reform school together in Florida. Starring Ethan Harris, Brandon Wilson, Hamish Linklater, Fred Hetchinger, David Diggs, and Ingenue Ellis Taylor. Written and directed by Ramel Ross. This film is honestly unlike anything I've ever seen before. I will talk about that when it comes to the execution of this film. But it is a film that astounded me immediately and really drew me in to the focus of the story, and made me kind of feel like a part of the story in just how it's presented. It's a film that I think should get a lot of recognition when it comes to awards. It probably will when it comes to Independent Spirit Awards and maybe Screen Guild Awards, but I don't think, sadly, I don't think it'll be recognized by those top awards. I I don't see it getting a Oscar recognition. Maybe Ingenue Taylor Ellis, but it's just because she's amazing. But I mean, that's really unfortunate, I think. But the heart of this story really belongs to Ethan Harris and Brandon Wilson, who trade back and forth the focus, the primary POV of this film, as two boys growing up in this Florida, essentially a residential home, a reform school, which is very interesting to watch, because I just watched Sugarcane recently, which is about residential school in Williams Lake, British Columbia, which is an interesting pairing, I think, to watch these films closer together, because this is one of the ones that the U.S. has in their dark history, and it's really brutal, but these boys' friendship in this dark period is so beautifully spoken by these two boys' performances. And then an older performance by David Diggs, who you only see in kind of a peripheral shot, because the way that it's shot with these two boys is from their POVs, but it shifts POVs between each boy's story, which I mean, I got to give to Ramel Ross for having that forethought to do this as a more driven and driver's seat type of narrative. More about that in a second. More praise here to Ingenue Ellis Taylor, who plays one of the boys' mothers. She's just a bright ray of light every time she's on screen. She's just incredible. I love her commitment, and she never phones it in. And two other actors that never phone it in is definitely Hamish Linklater playing another just gross and detestable human being, channeling a little bit of that midnight mass. Hamish is always an actor I enjoy when I see on screen as well. And Fred Hetchinger, who in 2024 has made a big year for himself. Gladiator 2, one of the bigger films of the year. He was so fantastic in Thelma. Sadly, he was also in Craven the Hunter. We won't talk about that one anymore. And then this film is just, he's just got such a breadth of roles that he's taking. So whether it's mainstream big roles or these small little roles and little films that are really enjoyable, the guy's rocking it. Raymond Ross, though, I am so interested to see how he progresses as a filmmaker after this one, because I really think that this is such a fantastic benchmark in his career. It tells a very powerful story that is very relevant to our times now in repairing the traumas of the past and forging on into the future. I think we need to regard and fully realize these stories of people that we marginalized, abused, and even killed in the streamlining of what they were trying to do race wise and stuff. So it's ugly stuff that needs to be brought to the surface and realized and dealt with, and not just kind of rebandaged. We have to get these wounds to heal. So you'll never see a film like this. Ramal Ross just did something astounding, and something so massively creative that I hope it gets recognized. That being my only issue with the film is not enough people are going to see it. More people need to see films like this. More people need to watch Selma. More people need to watch the James Baldwin documentary by Roel Peck, I Am Not Your Negro. So many people need to see these stories of marginalized black stories, because the mainstream black stories we see are also predicated to satisfy a broader minds, that I think the general messages get lost sometimes. And Nickel Boy's message never gets lost. I think it's an important film for 2024. I think it's an important film for our society right now. And it almost feels like it should, given the current social and racial climate, be required viewing. I say that's about a lot of films, but there are a lot of important films being made out there by important filmmakers, and this is definitely one of them. All right, let's move on to things that you can stream at home. On the streaming pile this week, Marvel has another animated adventure to put you through. The last one of this series. This is What If? Exploring pivotal moments from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and turning them on their head, leading the audience into uncharted territory. Featuring the voice of Jeffrey Wright, created by A.C. Bradley, available on Disney+. So I've been really liking these Marvel What If stories. I see on the internet people are really annoyed that they made Captain Carter like a main part, like an integral part in these movies. I don't have a problem with that. I think that one comes from misogyny and people liking you to use the term industry plant like it's an actual thing. I don't agree with that whatsoever. And I love Haley Atwell, so that stuff can go screw. But I don't know. This series is a lot of fun. It's well animated. Jeffrey Wright is really great as the Watcher, and there's some stuff in season 3 that I think is a lot of fun, including like a buddy adventure with David Harbour's The Red Guardian and Sebastian Stan's Winter Soldier that I thought was really, really hilarious. There's a whole Howard the Duck and Darcy romance episode that actually becomes very pivotal and creates a character that's voiced by Natasha Lyonne for the last few episodes. And I see that at the that people are having issues with the end execution of this thing. I will bring that back, full spoilers, when I do the now that it's over segment on this show on a later episode. But I'm just dropping the details that it is all available. All 8 episodes are now up on Disney Plus, and it's definitely worth checking out. All right, let's move on to something decidedly different in tone. This is The Agency. Follows a world of deeper intrigue and subterfuge, with characters fighting their own battles as they grapple with existential threats to the nation and the world. Starring Michael Fassbender, Jeffrey Wright, Jodie Turner-Smith, Richard Gere, Catherine Waterston, Harriet Sansom Harris, John Magaro, Sarah Lightfoot Leon, Andrew Brooke, India Fowler, Reza Brogerdi, and Alex Resnick. Created by Jez Butterworth and John Henry Butterworth. Available on Paramount Plus. And this is a new series through Showtime. So it is like a cable series that Paramount has because they're the sister streaming account. But this is basically your bureaucracy, your CIA red tape series about the ins and outs of the bureaucracy, of making deals, of making sacrifices to make deals happen. And, you know, at the heart of it, Michael Fassbender is your lead, and that'll bring me to a show all the time. I'm such a huge fan of Michael Fassbender and everything he does. So the fact that he's leading a TV show was super intriguing because I don't know, in his like A-list career, I don't think he's ever done a TV series before. So that's very cool. As is Richard Gere. Richard Gere, as far as I've known, has never done television unless it was like at the very start of his career. But to bring him in, and especially in a time where I really feel like I haven't seen Richard Gere a lot in stuff anymore, it's cool to see him show up in this. I do know he is in the new Paul Schrader film, Oh Canada, which I have a screener for sitting there that I just have not gotten to yet. But I definitely will, because I've heard good things and I've heard not so good things about it. So we'll see how it turns out. Also, Jodie Turner-Smith. I really enjoy her a lot. Wasn't a big fan of The Acolyte, so I'm hoping for a bit better out of this series. So far, so good. I also have to mention Catherine Waterston and John Magaro, 2 actors that I absolutely adore. I can't wait to see September 5 with John Magaro. I know it'll definitely probably be in the list of my favorites of 2024 when I see it, just from all the good word I've heard about it. And Catherine Waterston I've always enjoyed. But this is also the second in a row mention of Jeffrey Wright, who is in this series as well. So he's not just the watcher on this episode this week. He is also in this show, The Agency. I'm expecting good things from this show once it finished out its first season, and I believe it has been renewed for a second one. All right, let's move on to what James Gunn says is the beginning of canon for the new DC universe on the big and small screen. This is Creature Commandos. Follows a group of military superhumans composed by a human leader, a werewolf, a vampire, Frankenstein's monster, and a gorgon. Featuring the voices of Indira Varma, Sean Gunn, Alan Tudyk, Zoe Chow, David Harbour, and Frank Grillo. Created by James Gunn. So this one is only, I think, available on Stack TV in Canada, which is really weird that it wouldn't show up on Crave, being that this is a Max show in the States. It has been renewed for a second season. But like I said, this is kind of the starting point, with bits of the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, to what's forming the new DC cinematic universe. You got a great lead character in Rick Flag Sr., who is voiced by Frank Grillo, who is the father of Joel Kinnaman's character in the Suicide Squad. Um, I mean, Alan Tudyk is always fun playing in that sandbox. He was Clayface in Harley Quinn. Now he's Dr. Phosphorus in the Creature Commandos. Indira Varma is somebody I've enjoyed since Torchwood. And Sean Gunn tags along for all of his brother James' projects. So he voices two characters, and when he's G.I. Robot, who is obsessed with killing Nazis, and he's also reprising his role as Weasel. And James Gunn is just such a phenomenal writer when it comes to character. There is surprisingly deep emotional moments within Creature Commandos that completely caught me off guard, especially episode 4, which was Weasel's backstory. I think the episode's called Chasing Squirrels. And there was always the indication that Weasel, and they even say it as dialogue, that Weasel killed 27 kids in a school. You get the backstory of this, and it isn't exactly what you thought. I'm looking forward to revisiting this later when I can wrap it up with now that it's over. But as of right now, without the spoilers given, I say it's so solid. It's also it's also got a lot of music by Gogol Bordello, Eugene Hoots and the Gogol Bordello, who I love. They're a bucket list to see live because apparently their shows are crazy, but they add such an insane chaos to this show. Some of it works, some of the song choices don't work in my mind, but it's still a lot of fun. And I think if you're a comic book fan, you'll want to check this one out just for a little bit to feel complete when it comes to the DC universe, and to give like a template of how James Gunn's setting up this new universe. And also this one is super violent, so it is on the level of Peacemaker and that last Suicide Squad. So I highly recommend it. I just don't recommend buying Stack TV. All right, let's finish up here with another video game related thing, tying it in with Sonic, but this one is called Secret Level. Original stories set within the worlds of iconic video games are featured in this animated anthology series, created by Tim Miller, available on Prime Video. So I already kind of prefaced the Sonic one saying that video game adaptations haven't really had a great time in the sun when it comes to television and movies. There is some stuff that works, there's some stuff that really doesn't work, but I feel like in the last 5 years, maybe less, we've entered a phase where there's better product being turned out when it comes to video games. But this series is a little different because it's telling new stories within existing video game worlds, and I find that pretty fascinating. A lot of different voices in this one, including Arnold Schwarzenegger, Keanu Reeves, Kevin Hart. So you do have a lot of A-list voices in this one, but it's how this comes together where I think it really excels. And Tim Miller, it's the same Tim Miller that did Deadpool and then did Terminator Dark Fate. So he's worked in the Ryan Reynolds Marvel type of side of things. He's also worked for James Cameron, very closely with James Cameron for Dark Fate. But he gets to explore the CG world in this one. The very first episode is a Dungeons and Dragons episode, which feels like it's steeped in that lore. And there is kind of a new hotness when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, in my opinion, just because Honor Among Thieves, the one with Chris Pine and Hugh Grant and Michelle Rodriguez, was such a fun movie. I feel like it renewed maybe a mainstream thirst for Dungeons and Dragons tales now in 2024. And it's an entity that's existed for decades and decades. So I find that really cool. There's also a Pac-Man story in these episodes. There's a Mega Man story. There's a lot to go on in this one. And I think there might be a Cyberpunk 2077 one. I'll revisit that one once I've wrapped this whole series up. But it is a quick watch. The episodes are only 10-15 minutes each. So it is a really quick binge. I think it's playing more the T for teen style of games, so viewer discretion would be advised on this one. But I hope that it does get picked up for another series, because I'd like to see another slew of these stories being told. And I kind of dig the 15-minute animation shows like Star Wars Visions was on Disney Plus. So give us more. I'm totally into seeing more secret level for sure. Speaking of the now that it's over segment, I've got some shows to finish up here. All right, first, these are both ones that have been finished up for a while, but I can now kind of speak freely of them with with all spoilers revealed. So if you haven't seen either of these ones, when I give you the title card, just maybe pause the video or fast forward through it. First up, The Boys. A group of vigilantes set out to take down corrupt superheroes who abuse their superpowers. Starring Carl Urban, Jack Quaid, Anthony Starr, Aaron Moriarty, Jesse T. Usher, Laz Alonso, Chase Crawford, Tomer Capone, Karen Fukuhara, Nathan Mitchell, Colby Minifie, Claudia Dumet, Cameron Crovetti, Susan Hayward, Valerie Curry, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Created by Eric Kripke, available on Prime Video. These these seasons of the show always feel like such an event for me, because as a comic reader, I'm such a huge fan of the Garth Ennis collection of The Boys. Decidedly, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg and Eric Kripke have taken it in a different direction, but the heart of it is all still there. And the casting of this show is incredible. It's just incredible. It's just impeccable. Starting from the top, I mean, Carl Urban is a really great butcher. The character was originally modeled after Henry Rollins, so they did kind of changed the character. And the character Huey, played by Jack Quaid, was originally Simon Pegg, but they rectified that one by having Simon Pegg come in as the dad, as Huey's dad in this one, who sadly dies in this fourth season. Uh, but the whole execution of this was just epic. Bringing in Rosemary DeWitt as Huey's absent mother was also fantastic. Um, and new characters. I mean, Powers, Susan Hayward brought in as a new member of the Seven is very cool. Jeffrey Dean Morgan as you think that he's kind of like a CIA spook, but then you find out over the series that he's actually only in Butcher's head, because Butcher is basically, his whole world is collapsing due to his constant V injections, and turning into a monster himself that actually ends up killing Victoria Newman, putting this story in a crazy new direction. We end the season with Homelander basically being the leader of the free world, operating with a puppet president. So setting up a final season for 5 that all bets are off. All characters could die. We don't even know what's next, but we know that Homelander has the upper edge. Butcher is a complete monster who I don't think at this point can be redeemed. And the only thing left for this show is to get full awards accolades. And I think Anthony Starr should get so many awards for just this fourth season. The character work in this show is just insanely well done. And Kripke knows how to keep it all on the rails. And season 4, more than any other season, pissed off the right-wing people, because I think they really started to see that mirror reflect. But I would say that there's extreme left mirror reflections in this as well, and this show at its center is complete satire, and I think it nails it every time. And I can't wait to see what this cast of characters is going to do to close everything out, and where that crossover with Gen V is going to be, because we already saw a bunch of it in season 4. So whether we do get another Gen V season, or if it's just going to get rolled into Boys season 5, I'm not too sure, but I'm excited either way. And to know that they're filming right now is even more exciting. Like I'm pretty giddy about it. All right, let's move on to one that's been over for a while, and this one is definitely polarizing. It's HBO's Westworld. At the intersection of the near future and the reimagined past waits a world in which every human appetite can be indulged without consequence. Starring Evan Rachel Wood, Thandie Newton, Jeffrey Wright, James Marsden, Ingrid Bolso Bardal, Luke Hemsworth, Sidse Babbitt Knudsen, Simon Quarterman, Rodrigo Santoro, Angela Serafian, Shannon Woodward, Ed Harris, Anthony Hopkins, Ben Barnes, Clifton Collins Jr., Jimmy Simpson, Tessa Thompson, Ferris Fares, Lewis Hartham, Tallulah Riley, Gustav Skarsgård, Katja Herbers, Zahn McClarnon, Aaron Paul, Vincent Cassell, and Teo Akamoto. Created by Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy. Available on Crave. Okay, so season 1 of Westworld was mind-blowing. Thoroughly mind-blowing. There's doing stuff in this that I'd never seen before. Blew me away. Season 2 exposes and explores new worlds, tries to create a deeper conspiracy. It feels like it's heading in a very interesting direction by the end of season 2. And then I feel like season 3 and 4 just kind of drop the ball, loses direction, brings in a new character, kind of makes the focus about him, and then completely cuts off our what we thought was our lead character with Evan Rachel Wood in the final season, who basically spends almost the entire season separated from the rest of the principal cast. And I just feel like they didn't have any steam heading into season 4, and it was just kind of a stagnant bunch of episodes before an end that feels grandiose but also feels like not enough. And I really adore the cast. There's so many great people in this one. Jeffrey Wright making his third appearance on the podcast this week. James Marsden making his second appearance on the podcast. And there's a lot to really like about this show, but I mean, even the villains were confusing. Like, who is even the bad guy in the end? Like, I feel Ed Harris really was a bad guy in the end, but even Tessa Thompson's character, Charlotte, just kind of, she is the bad guy to a certain point, and then in the last episode, it's just like, I guess she's not a bad guy. She's just going through her purpose, and I don't know. I felt I felt kind of ripped off in the end. They kind of made this show a little bit of a downer and a waste of time in the execution, and I just was really bummed out that it all headed in such a steep decline. I still have the utmost faith in Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy as creators. I just feel like the thread was lost at some point between season 2 and season 3, and they never picked it up again. And Caleb, Aaron Paul, as much as I do like Aaron Paul, nothing of his character was interesting, and it all felt quite predictable. And in the end, like, is everybody hosts in the end? I thought that was kind of a bummer too, because it's just such a dystopian downer. And I commend HBO for letting it continue out to its conclusive end, but it didn't feel like enough. All right, let's rejoin in one of my movie journeys. And this journey in particular continues my foray through Albert Brooks's movies, which I started after watching the documentary Defending My Life, which is a retrospective look at Albert Brooks' career. I didn't go into the TV stuff. I started with the movie stuff. And I started off with Real Life. And now I'm moving on to this one, Private Benjamin. A sheltered young high society woman joins the United States Army on a whim and finds herself in a trickier situation than she had ever expected. Starring Goldie Hawn, Aline Brennan, Armand Assante, Robert Webber, Sam Wanamaker, Barbara Barry, Mary Kay Place, Harry Dean Stanton, and Albert Brooks. Directed by Howard Zieff. So this is one of those classics. I think this is one of the crowning jewels in the career of Goldie Hawn. This was 1980, so this is one of those early big ones for her. And I mean, at the heart, yeah, this is about a high society woman that is looking for a change in her life and basically puts herself in way over her head. Uh, in the army, but I also think that this is a story of female empowerment and taking your power back, because they set her up as kind of the downtrodden yes woman, that was destined to be the Jewish homemaker, and that waits hand on foot for her husband, played by Albert Brooks. In the beginning of this film, they get married. He has a heart attack while they're having sex, and he dies. So Albert Brooks, for me continuing this Albert Brooks movie journey, only really lasted 5 minutes. He's just really in the first part of the film, but you know, you got to hit all of them, which means I will be doing Finding Nemo at this point, at some point in this podcast. But Goldie Hawn is so damn good in this one. And how her relationship with Howard Zieff and how they construct this character and execute this character is really, really good. And especially the elevating women, I think, is really great. It made me really think that Goldie Hawn and her daughter, Kate Hudson, have very similar career paths, and that I could have seen Kate Hudson doing this type of a film early in her career as well. And I don't think Kate really has that type of movie in her repertoire, but I think that she could have really pulled it off. But it just shows me the mirroring of both of their careers, and especially in looks as well. They're both incredible looking women, and Goldie Hawn was an absolute crush of mine at a young age, because I saw early episodes of Rowan and Martin Laugh-In. I was just mesmerized by her. So I really enjoyed Private Benjamin. I think it holds up quite well. And I mean, Eileen Brennan in this film, more recently towards the end of her life, she played Jack Donaghy's mom in 30 Rock and was just hysterically funny on that series. But I mean, Armand Assante in a young role. Harry Dean Stanton is always really, really great. And one that I didn't mention in this one, playing kind of like a smarmy womanizer type of role, is Craig T. Nelson, a young Craig T. Nelson, way pre Coach and pre Poltergeist on this one, but playing kind of a character that has a very good resolution to his end in it, that I thought was really great. But yeah, this is a classic one. I had to go out and buy it myself because it's not available streaming anywhere, but I definitely enjoyed my rewatch of Private Benjamin, and looking forward to my next on the list with Albert Brooks, the Albert Brooks journey, which will be Modern Romance. All right, so that brings us to the end of this episode. But what are we going to talk about next week? See, this is a weird one because there really isn't anything playing in theaters. I haven't gone to the theaters since Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So I decided that I was going to take next week's video as an opportunity to do my top 10 of 2024. What made it into the list of a year that I said so many films are the best movies of the year. So what actually makes the cut? You will find all of that out next week. But until then, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Stevel Dead. You can find Chloe on Letterboxd at Honeybun Chloe. You can find all of these episodes on stevestebbing.ca and on the YouTube page as well. Just search Steve Stebbing or The Stevel Dead. You can also find us on shiftheads.ca. You can hear me every week on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Shane Hewitt and the Night Shift on Toronto's News Talk 1010 on the iHeartRadio network. And that's it for me. I've emptied out my list. So until the top 10 next week, bye-bye.